Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah, we have Ustadh Amin Buxton with us. Ustadh Amin Buxton is perhaps known to most of us as author of Imams of the Valley, which we give them PDF copies for them to refer to, for them to make notes of. We traveled around in Tarim, and we did visitations in Tarim, and we did visitations outside of Tarim as well. We went to Nabi Allah Hud, we went to Se'un, Bajal Haban, Asele, we went to Hawta of Habib Ahmad bin Zain, Habib Hassan bin Saleh, Al-Bahr al-Jufri, Sheikh Sultana.
Wow.
So we did all these visitations, and I did the curation for the visits, for most of them. We had Will Karnain, one of our Singaporean students in the Dar, to Mishta and the masjid of Muhammad bin Hassan Jamal bin Lain, but I did the rest of the curation, alhamdulillah. And we were wondering actually if Ustadh Amin can actually give us some thoughts on the meaning behind these visitations, and also, I mean, I think a lot of us are trying to connect spiritually, to the people whom we visit, those who are alive and those who have passed on. So maybe you can just share something, something from your experience, or something from the books, as to how we can give meaning to these visitations.
Inshallah.
Okay, so that's just my introduction. I think you all also know a little bit about Ustadh Amin. So I'll just leave this to Ustadh Amin Buxton, inshallah ta'ala.
Bismillah. Jazakumullah khair. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam. Jazakumullah khair. It's very nice to be here. I'm very honored to Shaykh Khairuddin and Amin Iskandar and all the, mashallah, blessed brothers and sisters, and have a good, had a very nice time in Singapore when I came. Had good memories of the place and the people, mashallah. You're very blessed. There's in Singapore you have those connection to these blessed places. But yeah, I guess I don't know, many of you are coming for the first time. It might be a bit overwhelming. Just you've done so many visits. I'm like, I don't know how is that, like in 1 week. Have you done all those visits, or like it's go easy, Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming just to be kind of thrown into the deep end and doing, going from one place to the other, and perhaps not understanding what's going on. So yeah, where do we start? It is overwhelming. I think you're coming into this this culture, or this manhaj, this way, this system, and it's maybe not, you hear people talking about it, but maybe it's different when you actually experience it, and what's actually going on when we visit these people, and why do we need to visit these people? What's the importance, and why are things done in a certain way in this place? Is it different from somewhere else? You travel to Syria, or you travel to Egypt. There's a different way of doing things. There's a different manhaj, and that's one of the beauties of Islam. The Islam in Southeast Asia is different from Islam in India, and Tarim has its own unique, way of methodology and way of doing it, which has evolved over hundreds of years, and it's built upon. But the foundations, in a way, they're common. The foundations are common across the ummah, but there's certain things which are unique to way the things are done in Tarim and Hadramaut, and it may not be your cup of tea, as we say in English. It may not be your thing. Not everyone. You don't have to, subscribe to everything. And it's Islam is beautiful and it's vast. Go to West Africa and you see a different blend of Islam and a different manhaj and a different way. But you'll still see the same commonalities. Love of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ta'zeem, veneration of Allah, veneration of the Quran, the masajid, and so on. But you might see things done differently. The dhikr or the practice is different. And Mauritania has its own dynamics, and the West has its own Islam now, which is a whole mix of different things. And but what you see in Tarim is a certain, it's very much it's very much an inherited methodology which passed down. It's very much, about honoring the Salaf, honoring the people who've gone before, honoring that we're standing, as you say, we're like standing on the shoulders of giants, by connecting to these great people, us in our, in this very late time that we're in, we can somehow have something of what they had. We couldn't. It's hard to imagine what it was like in Medina at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It's hard to imagine what it was like in Tarim in the time of Faqih Muqaddam. It's hard to imagine what it was like when Imam Muhajir came to Hadramaut. It's like such a long time ago. It's 1,000 years. Really, it's like. But what we do have is a living connection. When you see how things are done in Mustafa, you see how the Habaib, and you see, they're just passing on something that they've received from their father, from their grandfather, great grandfather, back to the Prophet ﷺ. But in a unique, it's a specific way of doing things. It's a specific manhaj. Specifically when it comes to visiting the awliya, that's again, it's not. You don't have to. It's not fard. It's not an obligation to visit the awliya. That's not. It's much of what you see in Tarim and the Dar al-Mustafa is trying to have that level of ihsan, of trying to go closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to find any means of getting closer to Allah. So if you see the Habaib doing something in a certain way, it's because they believe that's the best, closest way of getting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So last night we had those Ihya al-Layl in Dar al-Mustafa and Dar al-Zahra. You won't necessarily find that in another place, but they believe that is the best way of receiving Rajab, making the istighfar, all these things. They're specific choices that they made, believing that's the best way. It's not the only way. In Al-Azhar, they probably don't do that. They just have a different way of approaching it somewhere else. Why do they visit the awliya? Because they believe that those connections, those spiritual connections that they establish with these people, are what will be of the utmost benefit in this life and the next. But it's not in isolation. It's not like we just visit the awliya and then we're good. It's like you still have all the other things. We're still following the minhaj. We're still doing our fara'id. We're still connecting to the Quran. We're still studying the seerah. We're doing all the other things. That's just another door, like another door to getting closer to Allah. Why do they do why is the mawlid done every Thursday night in Dar al-Mustafa, for example? It doesn't have to be like that. There's no rule that says you have to do the mawlid. But they believe that that's a tartib, that's a system that they've established to get as a means of getting closer to the Prophet ﷺ. If you go somewhere else, they'll do something else. But they, because there's the presence of these great people, these great imams who've been honored. This valley has been honored by their presence more than many other places. We don't have any. If you come to Scotland, you won't find the graves of the awliya. There may be one or two, inshallah, hidden people, but there's not. We could just have one. That'd be great. We visit them all the time. But in Singapore, you have, mashallah. But in Tarim, there's this incredible concentration of incredible imams. Great imams who reached high levels. That even writing a biography about them is just it can't do justice to what because most of it is an internal state that they can't be described. You get a trace of it in their poetry, for example. When they speak about their experiences with Allah and they speak about their longing for Allah. But the reality of what the state of Shaykh Abu Bakr bin Salim cannot be known. It can't be written down in a biography. A biography can just give some details about where they lived and who they studied with, and maybe some stories about them. But that's like the tip of the iceberg. What their real state with Allah is not known. But you hope by visiting them that maybe you receive something from what they've been given. And I think one of the questions was, perhaps we don't feel. We're told all these things, this is so amazing, and these shuyukhs, and maybe we don't feel that. We don't feel that in our hearts. I'm not feeling incredible openings. I'm not having incredible dreams, and I'm not seeing amazing things. And that's not. Don't worry about it. It's not. It's just the fact that Allah has brought you to Tarim, brought you to these places, to Dar al-Zahra, Dar al-Mustafa, to visit these places. That's just a huge sign of tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's very, very few people will ever visit these places. Of the 2 billion Muslims on the planet today, very few people will ever even visit the Haramain, let alone visit Tarim. And we see millions of people. When we go for Umrah, we see thousands and thousands of people. But even them, that's a small percentage of the people who will come. And even, but much smaller than that is the people who will ever come to somewhere like Tarim. Ever even think about coming to Tarim, let alone, So just the fact that you've come to Tarim, you've connected to these people, you visited them, you may not feel anything, and it's not about feelings either. That's another point. It's not about what you feel. It's nice to feel inshirah or feel like amazing feelings, but it's not. Our connection is not based on those feelings. And sometimes we can get into this kind of spiritual talk. Someone's had a dream, someone's seen this or felt this, and it's not. Those are side things. They're nice if they're there, but they're not. We don't measure our deen by those things. You measure the deen by your istiqamah, by your practice, by your consistency, by your presence of heart when you remember Allah, all those things. So if anyone wants to, I can keep talking, or people can, if you want to kind of, feed off from that, or it's up to you. I can, if you want to ask anything, or just you can keep going.
So ladies, give you an opportunity to ask questions. Ustadh, you think that perhaps it's a little bit, we're jumping the gun a little bit if we are expecting like a trip, to actually help to change our states. Is that something that's unrealistic, or it is to have a change of state that require time for you to develop spiritually?
I think it's we need time out of our routines. We need to come to blessed places. We need to make umrah. We need to go on retreats as a kind of not an escape, but as a kind of to get some inspiration, to get some to see that what I find coming back to Tarim is like you just see things in a different perspective, because you're so caught up in your routines and your media and following. Like I haven't looked at the news for the last week or something, which is I know we should be concerned about what's happening in Palestine and all the rest of it, but it's just a relief, But when I'm at home, I'm constantly checking and it's a bad habit, but it's just you're in that environment. You're constantly following everything that's happening and this and that, and there's things are always developing. But when you come here, subhanAllah, you just realize like what are the really important things? What are the priorities? I can't I can't change what's happening in the political situation. I can't. It just creates more worry and concern. But when you come and you focus on your own progress and your own self, then but yeah, it's not. Don't expect miracles from one trip to Tarim. In one sense, we do expect miracles. We want miracles, and we hope, inshallah, we'll have miracles. But don't expect immediate results. I guess what I'm saying, But over time, you'll definitely come back with something. You'll definitely come back with gifts, spiritual gifts, with some insight, no doubt. But we don't expect things to kind of change overnight. We'll probably go back, and we'll probably go back into our routines again and work and whatever it is you're involved in, and because you're affected by the company that you keep. You're affected by the people that are around you. That's another sign is that like when you come somewhere like here and everyone's in that traveling in one direction, everyone is remembering, everyone's doing the trying their best to seek Allah, and they take you with them, But when you're back at home, everyone's sort of going in the other direction, so they pull you down, That's why Imam Ibn Ata'illah said, don't only keep company of someone whose words inspire you and whose state lifts you. The meaning of the hikmah, But we may not have the luxury of having that. We don't necessarily, we just have to be realistic. So, don't expect to change overnight in a sense, but take inspiration from what you've seen and try and implement something. You're not going to read all the adhkar that are read, every day in Dar Mustafa. I spent years here, and I'm not able to do that going back. But you take what you can, and try and implement that, and and keep good company, people that maintain that energy and maintain that inspiration. But we need these trips. We need to come back. We need to connect. But again, a lot of the teachings are about the hard work that you have to do on yourself, which is we want kind of openings and everything's going to happen like that. But the fruits of what we see, people like the Habaib, is from years and years of training. Just like you don't expect you don't expect to get fit just by 1 week of you go to the gym for do an intensive course in the gym for 1 week. You're not going to be fit. You have to do it constantly, consistently for months, and that's what you're seeing there is a result of years and years of training, and also that it's inherited. We can't compare ourselves to the Hubabahs and the Habaib. They're at a different level. So yeah.
So you want to ask, or you can type and send your questions to me, so I can read it out to Ustadh Amin. But if you want to ask,
no, there's no pressure. Just relax. I'm not one of the Habaibs.
Yeah, you can send it. So this is a question from one of our female participants. She's asking, how do you disassociate and expect less from the outside world in order to connect to Allah truly?
Truly connect to Allah. Yeah.
You need to disassociate or maybe disconnect. From the outside world, in order to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I mean, it really depends on your. Ideally, we could, have a time of where we're not we come to Tarim, or you spend a time in khalwa, you spend some time away from everything. But the reality is, most of us won't be able to do that. Some people will be even in Tarim, even in Tarim, it's not like there aren't distractions. It's not like there isn't internet. It's not Jannah. Tarim's not Jannah. It helps. The environment helps, but even that, it's not. People, you can still waste your time in Tarim. You can still. It's really about, I think, just being realistic and trying just to minimize to some degree some of our connection. Then it depends also what stage in life you're at. Whether if you're a mother, if you're married with kids, and it's going to be that's going to take up your time and energy. If you're young and you're still studying, whatever, then it's a different stage in your life. But at the end of the day, we can never fully disconnect from the dunya. We have to. That's the biggest challenge, is to live in the dunya and try not to be overly attached. We still have to earn a living. We still have to have family relations. With dunya is never going to be completely divorced from the dunya. But what we can do is just look at our attachments and try and minimize to some degree what we can do, and that's very difficult, because we're very set in our, we're addicted to our technology, we're addicted to this and that, we like our luxuries and we like certain things. It's a difficult thing to do. But if we take stock, if we make a muhasabah of ourselves, and again, coming to a place like this, it kind of puts things in perspective. How much do we really need of these things? Can we be a little bit more, can we minimize a little bit on certain things? Do we really need the latest iPhone? Do we really need these? Some of these things we can cut back on. But that's one side. And then the other side is, what I see from our teachers is to work, the opposite of the dunya is to focus on growing the love of Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the heart and the awliya. Why is that so much emphasis on that? Because if you fill your heart with that, then the dunya naturally will the importance of the dunya will be minimalized. But why is there so much emphasis on love of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the awliya, the salih, the qasaid, all these things that there? Why is so much time spent in these things here? Because if you really work on that, the love of Allah will be dominant, and then the love of the dunya will be less. It'll still be there, but it's less. It becomes less significant, and the dhikr, the qasa, all these things, and they're nurturing that love so that it becomes less of a challenge. Your heart only has so much capacity. If it's so full of dunya, and then that will take up the majority of your thoughts and your time and your effort. When you focus on the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you nourish that and work on that, it'll reduce the dunya basically. And it's the three enemies that the people of the tasawwuf talk about. The dunya, the shaitan, and the nafs. These are three things. They're never going to be. They're always going to be there. The dunya is an external thing that we have to interact with it. The nafs is our internal thing, which we're always going to be struggling against. And the shaitan is this other force which is trying to distract us and take us away. The more we're conscious of these things and we're sort of addressing them and learning about them, Imam Ghazali is one of the great teachers of just exposing these things, exposing the nafs, exposing the shaitan, exposing the dunya. When we kind of see things with clarity, then it'll help. But it's never gonna. It's a never-ending struggle. It doesn't end. But what we can do is just be. At least you're asking that question. At least you're aware that there's work to be done. A lot of Muslims don't even think there's work. They're not even asking that question. So, yeah.
I'll ask these two questions because I think that they are somewhat related. First one is. As you were preparing Imams of the Valley, which Imam or Awliya, which stories impacted you the most?
Okay.
We have another one. Okay. So, as someone who is familiarizing herself with these great Awliyas, do you have advice on how to start? Perhaps to form certain connections with them, considering that there are so many.
Yeah, there's so
many inspiring stories.
Yeah. I think the reason that what happened was that Habib Abdul Qadir Sagaf passed away. I think it's 2012, and everyone was like, this great Imam has passed away, and there was nothing about him. We didn't actually know anything about him at all, So I thought, let me just. The scholars, they write biographies. So that's how I wrote something. That was kind of the first thing. I felt like, how can we sort of mourn this great Imam who's passed, and we don't know anything about him, and that's kind of often the case. Even I've been in Tarim for a number of years. We always go Zambal and Faqih Muqaddam, Sagaf, and we don't ask anyone, what do you actually know about these people? So I thought that was kind of like the trigger to kind of write about them. Also, we went to visit Aden at that time. Again, Imam al-Adani heard about this great Imam. And again, you don't know anything about them. But so it was just like a desire to kind of, for myself, to know more and then sort of share it with other people. It wasn't planned to be a book or anything. It just kind of, and then someone's coming to Tarim, who are the main people that they need to know? I think it's confusing because there's so many names and there's so many, and they're all from different places and times. And even when you go to Zambal, we've got a couple of families who have just come from Scotland with us actually, and I just talked about 5 because Because if you start talking about 10 or 15, you forget. You start about one, you've already forgotten about who this is and how they connected. It's just, you don't need to know the name of every single one, and it's more. And even like I said about the biographies, it's not the information. You don't need to know what date. You don't know what date they were born and what date they died, and it's not like history when you study at school. The King George IV, and it's not about that at all. It's just that all you need to know is that they were great people, and they connect you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's certain key figures that if you understand kind of where they stand in the history, then it's important. But even that, it's not. No one's gonna. It's not a test to know how much information you stored about them. But say for example, it's important to know that Imam Muhajir obviously is a key figure because he's the first. He's the grand, he's the ancestor of all the Habaib, and he's the one that made the hijrah and established things here. So he's very important. Then you have a Faqih Muqaddam because he is the kind of father of the tariqah, the spiritual path. But even that, how much do we really know about him and what he, it's kind of shrouded in mystery. But we have someone like Imam al-Haddad who we know a lot about because so much is written. So much is written about him. Of his own poetry, his own poetry tells. If you read his poetry, it tells you so much about him, and so many letters that he wrote and works that he wrote, and his students did a really good job of recording his life. So for him, we have a lot to say about him, and that gives us a picture into what the others were like in a sense. Interestingly, actually, there's a biography of Habib Ahmed Mashhur al-Haddad. You might have seen. It's Mustafa Badwi, like 500 pages or something, which is a rare detail. And I'm not saying you have to go and read that, but it gives you an insight into how much, can be recorded about someone's life and how much their states and their experiences and their people's experiences with them and things like that. But of the ones that are 500, 600, 700 years, we don't know that much about them really. We don't know that much about them, but we have a good opinion of them and we try and connect to them. But don't worry too much if you don't know the name of this person or that person. If you've done so many ziyaras in the last week, you probably can't remember who they were and how they connect to each other. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just the fact that you visited them and connected to them, alhamdulillah, it's a huge blessing.
So this is actually from me. So that's one of the things that struck me actually. When we're in these Muhibbin circles, when you look at the biographies of the Habaib, you find that they don't write many books, and sometimes you wonder, especially earlier on, wonder like
what were they doing?
How can this person be more, more a bigger figure than say Imam Nawawi who wrote, countless books, Imam Ghazali. Why honor them to that extent? So do you have any thoughts about that?
Imam Nawawi is he's recognized by all, and he's an expert in his field, and he was a wali of Allah as well, and a great imam in many different areas, and Allah chose him for that role. And Allah chose him to do that, but there was many other people in his time and place that were also great people that we don't necessarily remember. And same here. There was the vast majority of the Ba'alawi imams are unknown, very very relatively unknown, except in certain circles. But that doesn't mean that Imam Nawawi excelled in his field, and some of these people they excelled in their field, which was their walaya and closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not measured. It's not like a league table, like in the whoever scores the most points is the top of the league. It's not about that, And even when we compare like the Sahaba, it's a very like, who is better than who? Yes, is Abu Bakr better than we obviously Sayyidina Abu Bakr is, he's a Siddiq, but maybe Abu Dharr was superior to him in his zuhud or something that it's like, how can you measure things which are not measurable? That you can measure something in terms of books that are being written and certain output and things like that. But in terms of like state with Allah, how can you measure those things? How can you measure those things? Mahbubiyya, someone who's how beloved is. How can you measure how beloved someone is to Allah? The fact that these countless people in Zimbabwe that we don't even know anything about them, but they are, they're recognized as being great imams by the people of their time and the people afterwards, and it's a secret at the end of the day, a secret of how beloved they are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But obviously, yeah, we're not saying who they're superior. Imam Nawawi is superior or they're superior. Imam Nawawi is recognized. Imam Ghazali is recognized for what they contributed to the tradition. But these people had their own place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who knows who will be in the highest place at the end of the day, on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allahu a'lam.
So, I have 3 questions from the same person. Okay, so from the same questioner. So, how do you discipline yourself? To remain, to have presence of heart, to stay connected with these people that we visited. Number 2, how to handle challenges once you're back at home. To remain istiqamah as the environment is totally different from here. And number 3, how do you manage your expectations as the only constant is change?
As the
only constant is change.
Only constant is change. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. The first one is presence of heart. Presence of heart in ibadah or presence of heart with the how do you maintain?
Stay connected.
Yeah, stay connected with them. Yeah. I mean, to stay connected with them, it's part of our practice. We read the awrad. Everyone should have a practice of reading something of the awrad. And again, don't be. It's overwhelming how much is recited in the Dar Mustadar Zahra. Just even if you just had one thing that you stuck to, and everyone's going to be at different levels. Some people can read better than others. Some people are more used to the Arabic. Some people are just. If you had something that you just were consistent in, that will connect you back to them. So if it's just if you can do Wad al-Latif, for example, and make that consistent, that's amazing. That's brilliant. That connects you to the shuyukh, because you've taken that from a chain of connection back to Imam al-Haddad and back to the Prophet ﷺ. And then obviously if there's gatherings that you can attend, if there's in the mashallah Singapore you have certain gatherings, and if there's a weekly mawlid you can attend, and if you can't, just do something in the house, or do both. I mean, if you can attend a bigger gathering once in a while, great, but start something in your house, even just something very simple. It doesn't have to be something amazingly elaborate. Maybe we find it difficult to read the mawlid or read the burda, but just get a few of your sisters or your brothers and just family, just read something very simple. Read a little bit of a little qasida that you'll know. Just don't underestimate this. Just doing something on a small scale with people that are close to you. You don't have to know all the qasidas and everything, but that connects you, and making intentions. Why do we have like at the beginning of gatherings the Fatihas and the intentions, all these kind of things? So we establish that spiritual connection to the people that we're trying to connect to. After every salah, for example, in Dar Mustafa, there's a special Fatiha that's recited. They don't used to say it out loud, but they do a Fatiha for the Ahl Kisa and for the Imam al-Muhajir, for Muqaddim. After every salah, they do that. So if you're doing that after every salah, it only takes a few seconds, but that's connecting yourself. You're remembering them. If you love someone, you remember them. If you love someone, if you love the Prophet ﷺ, you remember him all the time, and you send him messages. You send salawat to him. If you love these people, you send them messages by sending them a Fatiha, for example. And it's all, they do a Fatiha that Allah gives this gift to the Rasulullah and the Ahl Kisa and all these people, and that Allah accepts our salah as well. So you're getting benefit from that Fatiha. Why if you read the Ratib, for example, there's all these Fatihas at the end. It might seem a bit confusing, a bit long, but it's all that idea of connecting back to them, constantly, connecting back to them. But again, I think a little is a lot. think that's the important thing. A little is a lot. You don't have to do all the stuff you don't have to do the Mawlid every week. You don't have to do all these things. But even a small practice that you do in the house with your family on a regular basis, your own, that will have a big impact. And you're connecting to the, and also then following what you can. If there's lessons that you follow of Habaib, if you want to, so again, it's not even just. I don't. A lot of people, I don't necessarily watch the whole Mawlid every week that's from Tarim, but I might just once in a while just watch a little bit of it or listen to some of the qasa'id. It's just something that it's an hour and 2 hours long or something. I know realistically I'm not going to follow that every week, but just once in a while, just tuning into something, and there's translations, or there's even just the Arabic, just a little, getting a little, almost like a little sip, from that gathering. And so much of the stuff is now online. You can follow it. But you don't have to, what I'm saying is you don't have to follow the whole thing. Just the 5 minutes. Just see Habaib and he's giving a talk or he's making a dua. So that was number one. Or maybe two. It was, 2 and 3 were kind of interwoven. What was 2? Number 2 was how do we keep it up when we go home or something? Yeah. That was 2 as well.
So 2 was how to handle challenges once you're back home, to remain istiqamah as the environment is totally different.
Yeah.
And how do you manage expectations as the only constant is change?
It's all like it's just, but don't be too hard on yourself. Just you see people. You might see Singaporeans or people who've lived here for a long time, and they're doing a certain amount. You're not necessarily going to be at that level. You just have to look at where you are yourself, and what you can realistically practice, what you realistically can do in your own situation where you are with your family. Whatever opportunities come to connect with people, like-minded people, you guys can all stay in touch with each other when you go back. You can meet up. You can remind each other. You can meet up for a meal or a coffee and just remind each other of Tarim. It doesn't have to be always dhikr and dua, and it doesn't have to be just you share this experience with each other. Maintain that. And stay in touch with each other. Stay in touch with good people, but just be realistic. Things excelling in your studies or your work, whatever it is you're doing. Being connected to the awliya, that's a big, that is istiqamah. We'd all like to be, we'd like to be 24/7 in these environments, but it's actually, in many ways, what I feel is that you probably feel the same. It's like the real learning is when you go back. The real test of what you've learned here is when you go back. It's great here, mashallah. You hear the adhan, the salah, everything's here. If you can't do it here, but when you go back, can you still do at least something? You're not going to do it all, but can you do something? And you actually learn what you're always learning in that environment. You're challenged, and some people will, struggle with that. But as long as you maintain that connection and have like-minded people.
What about the speed of recitation? Is that a goal that people should work towards?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's not a competition.
Some people find it actually overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming completely. Yeah, completely.
But you feel pressure, to keep up.
It's just, especially Dar Mustafa. Dar Zahar is they do more adhkar than Dar Mustafa. They do because Habaib Noor is like, her father is Habaib Muhammad al-Haddar, and he was someone that just had the stamina for adhkar, for like, even what's in the khulasa is just the khulasa. It's the khulasa. That's like the summary of what he used to recite, which is, and Habaib Noor has that, like constant, But it's not a competition to see how fast you can recite. It's not a competition to see how much you can recite. Again, if you just read just the very minimum with presence and just enjoy it, It's not, and it becomes like almost like a chore. I have to get through the next word and the next and then I'm done, and then it's like, just enjoy it. Read, enjoy it, understand the meaning of it. Understanding the meaning is more important than reading lots of it. When you say like, learn word al-latif, but learn the meaning of word al-latif and the merits of word al-latif, because almost every dhikr in word al-latif has a hadith or a narration and a benefit. So say, حسبي الله لا إله إلا عليه توكلت رب العرش العظيم. See how fast I said it. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت رب العرش العظيم. 7 times. The one who says that 7 times, their worries will be removed. The hadith says, or not something along those lines. The worries of this life and the worries of the next. So just imagine if you just said that. I'm not going to do all the whole thing. I'm just going to say, I'm going to say it 7 times slowly. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكل. And understanding the meaning, if you can, while you're saying it. حسبي Allah, Allah is enough for me. عليه توكلت, I put my trust in Him. Bit by bit, and really feel it. That's what we want. That's the meaning of the dhikr, is to feel the meaning of what you're saying and be connected to the one who you're remembering, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yeah, don't, do things slowly in your own time. And if it takes you a long time, that's fine. That's fine. If you can't do the whole of Yasin, just do the first page. And work towards doing the whole of Yasin. If that's, everyone's at different levels. Most of the people I deal with they can't read. They struggle just with the Arabic. You guys are probably a lot more proficient than that. So don't worry about that.
Any other questions for Ustadh Amin?
I'm just tired now. Long day. Going to Da'an tomorrow, inshallah.
Iskandar, you want to
add any? You give us some nasiha. Yes.
So why you say slowly recall?
I was just saying, like, as an example, why, instead of like what we normally do is read it 100 miles an hour, and try and get it finished, just stop and think about what you're saying and the importance of what you're saying and what and the merit of what you're saying. Think about.
So you don't know the meaning?
That's what I mean. We need to put a bit of work in it. Maybe have the there's commentaries. Have that with you. Like when I recite, when I do my Quran, for example, I'll have a tafsir with me. I'll have and maybe an English translation. I'm not, I'll use it. Well, I use different resources, and that might mean I'll recite less Quran, but at least I've understood something that day of the Quran which is new. So maybe with the word al-latif or with something else, have the translation there. If there's a commentary, if there's some kind of explanation. If you can, there's even videos of people explaining word al-latif. Maybe like anything, the more you understand of it, the more you get out of it. Instead of we just take things, I'll just take and just act on it. But if we took it a bit more slowly and understood the depth of what it is, I think that's a lot of what we're thrown into Dar al-Zahra, Dar al-Mustafa, and we're hearing all these things, and we don't realize how deep these things are and how much meaning there is in them, because it's done so fast and it's taken for granted. But if you just to stop and just think, wow, just that one dhikr, how powerful that is, or that one ayah, how powerful it is, I don't know.
Any last questions, Ustadh Amin?
And you find that with converts as well, someone who's new to the faith, they surprise you by noticing something that you hadn't noticed, a meaning of something you've just taken for granted for years. You've heard they might notice something about the adhan. Wow, you've just heard it hundreds of thousands of times. You never noticed it, or something in the salah or something in the Quran, because they're coming to it fresh without any preconceptions or if you're born in a Muslim household, you're just taught this is how it is, and this is we do this and do this. No one's ever explained to you necessarily like why we do this or what the meaning of this is. But someone who comes fresh, they ask questions like, I had never thought about that, But you need to be like that almost, a bit curious, like ask why do we say that and why do we do this, and don't just take it for granted almost. There's a depth to everything. There's a reason for everything.
Just one last question from me. You've been to Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen how Singapore is like. What would you advise? In terms of learning, what would you advise the awam, how much they should learn, how often, what they should learn and try to implement, in their lives.
Yeah, no, it's again, every person will have a slightly different level. Some of you amongst you may want to. I don't know if some of you are already studying. Are they studying full time, or are they the students that you're talking about? Or no, they're just mostly visiting.
They are mostly visiting. We have Ustadh with us as well.
Yeah. So you're at different levels, but I think what I see in Tarim is there's different levels of kind of you could say religiosity. There's different levels of practice. But even the average, even the kind of taxi driver, the average kind of guy will most of them will still attend some kind of gathering. Maybe not, but a lot of them will still attend some kind of gathering, like the Mawlid this morning in Masjid Mahdar. That's awam and nas. The ordinary people are still attending that, and they're getting spiritual benefit from it. If you there's a requirement to study your basic fard ayn. You study your basic fiqh, basic aqidah. That's very short. You can do a basic course that doesn't take a long time, and that's enough. That's enough as long as you know your practice. What you're doing is correct. If you're going to get married or whatever, then you need to learn about. I think they have marriage courses and things like those kind of things are important. If you're in business, but all of that can be done in a quite short time. In the long term, what's going to be your kind of consistent practice? What's going to be your consistent learning, you could say? And I think personally, I would in the long term, I would say probably the most important thing is your suluk, is your spiritual traveling, journeying. Because the fiqh and the aqidah, as long as you've done the basics, that's enough. Some people will want to go further, and that's great. Some people want to go deeper into fiqh, and that's all fine. So deep into other sciences, but none of that's obligatory. But your spiritual state is in a sense, it's an obligation if you want to get closer to Allah. So having ideally going through the books of Imam Haddad, Imam Ghazali, whatever opportunities come to learn, to read them, to study them, and it's not a race again. Like over 10 years or something, you could. But the things about Imam Ghazali talks about, they're never going to go away. It's showing off, arrogance, envy, these kind of discussions. We're going to always need these things. And the more we work on those purifying ourselves, becoming more sincere, becoming more grateful, more patient, all these. So you have the muhlikat and the munjiyat, the destructive things and the saving qualities, which are in the Ihya, but they're also in other books. The more we can, over a long period of time, work on these things and develop these things, that's going to be the best for our long term. Some people will have that natural, I want to study more fiqh, I want to go deep into the seerah, and all that's, wonderful. But if I give a general advice, that's my advice for myself as well. And I'm not someone that was like really keen on fiqh. It's just like, but the things that were never going to go away, your nafs is never, struggle with your nafs is never going to go away. So the more you can address that, and over a long, it's a long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. The more we can think about those things, and at the same time developing that mahabba that I talked about before. The more you can do to develop that, the love of Allah, love of Rasulullah, love of the awliya. Devote time to that. That in the long term will be, I think that will be the most fruitful. Yeah. Allah. Yeah. But that's my opinion. Everyone have their own approach. Amir Skandar has his own approach and has his own shuyukh, and everyone has their own. That's the beauty. Everyone has a different approach to the deen. Some people their opening is in the Quran. Some people their opening is in the fiqh or whatever. But as a general advice, you can't go wrong if you're working on your nafs and working on yourself. But it's not all kind of bad. It's tough. It's like I said, work on the mahabba side of things. Read the seerah with mahabba. Read the poems and so on with mahabba. And I'm sure there's poetry and there's poetry in English now. There's poetry in Malay. If you can't understand the Arabic, these things are, anything that nurtures that love in your heart is beneficial. Inshallah. We need to have a, we're going to Darwin tomorrow.
Yes.
MashaAllah. Staying the night over there, or, yeah. We're going for the, yeah. MashaAllah.
We're staying the night.
That's great.
So we're coming back on Tuesday.
Nice. MashaAllah. Beautiful place, inshallah. Full of beautiful awliya, inshallah.
So we will. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Ameen. Wow. يا الله صلي وسلم على اللهم يا دائم الفضل على البريه يا باسط اليدين بالعطيه يا صاحب مواهب سنيه صلي على سيدنا محمد خير وراء سجيه واغفر لنا يا ذا في هذه العشيه. I ask Allah to accept all your intentions, the intentions of this gathering and this visit, and all the blessed intentions that you've come with, and all the things you've come with, and all the difficulties that you have. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make them easy, inshallah. That you've all expended this effort and expended this money and expended this time and had these hopes, and Allah ya Rab bijahi hawla, inshallah, that none of the hopes will be disappointed, ya Rab. None of these Habaib, these are generous, they're very generous people, they're very kind people. They open their hearts to you, and they don't never doubt that you'll be given, inshallah. We ask Allah for kamal and complete sincerity and complete ikhlas and complete purity of heart and closeness to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the awliya and the salihin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the barriers between us and him, and the barriers between us and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the barriers between attaining the highest ranks of closeness to him, Ya Rabbal Alameen. وارزقنا كمال المعرفة والمحبة والهدى والتوفيق والتقى والعفاف والغناء والرضا واليقين تجمع لنا بين خيرات الدنيا والدين وكمال السلامة من جميع الفتن الظاهرة باطنة يا رب العالمين. Ya Rabbi, ask Allah for all the good things our Prophet ﷺ asked for. We seek refuge in you from all the bad things the Prophet ﷺ referred to. Make us follow truly in the path of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Fatima al-Zahra, and Khadija al-Kubra, and Aisha Rida, and all the great women and the great men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah guide our families and our friends, our neighbors. If we have friends and family who are not Muslim, guide them to Islam. If we have friends and family not on the deen, guide them, enter them into the deen. Ya Rabbi. If we have friends and family who are on the deen, increase them in closeness to Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bless all the efforts that are going on in your communities, inshallah. Allah has to support those efforts and make them, all those efforts, be a joy to our shuyukh and a joy to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ja'alna qurrata ayn sayyid al-mursaleen sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Make inshallah with every good intention and all good intention, inshallah. تقبل منا كمل آمين. حضرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Alhamdulillah. The two best things: حسن الظن بالله, حسن الظن بعبادillah. Have a good opinion of Allah and a good opinions of the servants of Allah. You will never go wrong, inshallah. So leave Tarim with that, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah.